day 2. Now, day 2, Frida was the one left behind. So now I called Frida at night when I got home the previous day, told her, you come till the Ahero Junction, we meet at the Ahero Junction, and then we can proceed with you and join the guys who had gone ahead. So remember, I got home at about 2 something, and so Frida and I were supposed to meet at 5. So 5 a.m. So I got home at like something. I didn't even spend like 2 hours at home. I just got home, showered, and then napped a bit. Then I woke up, took my bike, got to Ahero. Frida had gotten to Ahero already. We met at the Total petrol station. I fueled, and then we proceeded to Kisumu. So Kisumu, we just rode through the city really fast in the morning. Not much traffic. I think we rode into like Oginga Odinga Street, and then out of Kisumu. And then, so out of Kisumu, at this point, it's just Frida and I. So we rode past the airport to Maseno, stopped by the equator thing, took some photos and videos, and then we proceeded past, Maseno, Maseno, RWANDA, all the way past like Ugunja, and then we went to Bumala to meet the rest of the crew. So when we got to the home, only I think maybe Eddie and Peter had woken up. Pauline was still asleep. So remember, now this is the day that we are supposed to be crossing the border. We got to Bumala at about 10 a.m. and these guys were still asleep. The original plan was for us to leave early in the morning at like 8, but of course, because of the events of the previous day, we couldn't do that. So remember, at this point, the entire crew is in Bumala, apart from Dennis, who has been left in Kisumu because his bike has stalled. So we called Dennis in the morning. Dennis at like 8 a.m., he was already at Abson Motors. They had already started looking at the bike. So he kept us updated. So at around maybe 11, when we were eating something, we called Dennis. Dennis is like, oh, these guys are almost done, and they're just about to test the bike. So like at that point, we thought, okay, maybe we just delay a little bit and then see if Dennis's bike is fixed. Then it should make sense to have him join us before we cross the border. So we bought some time in Bumala trying to fix a few things here and there, buying supplies, making copies of documents that we'd need at the border. And then Dennis gives us a call and he says he's tested the bike and he's on his way. So we're like, okay, cool, that's actually really nice. So from Bumala, we were really slow, took so much time between Bumala and Busia. I don't even know what we were doing exactly. So we got to Busia, where some people still needed to like copy their documents, sort out a few things. Getting to the border, so many agents running at you. But the interesting thing is, the moment we got to the border, I parked my bike, and then as I was about to leave to go get some money from an M-Pesa shop, then I see Dennis riding in. I'm like, what? Like, you've done Kisumu to Busia in that short time? So we're like, okay, it looks like your bike has been fixed, and it's really nice. That's really good. So everyone was so happy to see Dennis coming all the way from Kisumu to join us. So it was a really happy moment for all of us, because we were worried that we had started the trip together, and so because of his bike, he wasn't gonna make it through the rest of the trip, which was sad. But Dennis joined us. We crossed the border, and then it took a while. It took like maybe two hours. There was no power at the border, so they were doing like manual registry. Yeah, just stressful stuff. Talk about a bit about like what documents you need to cross the border and all that stuff. For now, just focus on the story. So we crossed the border, and then now it's about maybe 5 p.m. and we needed to get to Entebbe. Entebbe at that point is like 300 and something kilometers away. If you know group rides, oftentimes you don't move so fast. The other thing is, this is our first time riding our motorcycles in a different country. So of course, there's a bit of caution. Also, it's the evening. You're getting used to the roads. The light is going down. So now I take the lead, and then I think Eddie was sweeping and the other guys were at the center. And our first stop was at the Bugiri, Jinja, Kampala Junction. So now between that distance, we were still very cautious of like the roads. We don't know how the roads look like. We were observing speed limits. I mean, we did throughout the trip, most parts of the trip anyways. It was like in the evening, the sun is setting, so really nice views. So we were kind of riding a bit easy and slowly, just looking at the landscape, trying to understand how people drive in Kampala on the roads, and just trying to play it safe, right? So we got to the junction, we stopped to take a few photos here and there, yeah, with like the billboard, which was nice. At that point, the excitement is still high. Dennis has joined us. We are happy. We're now moving. We've gotten into Kampala. Now we've left Kenya. So of course, that's quite a bit of progress, right? So from there, now we do another briefing, because we knew that from between that distance and the rest of the distance we had to cover, it was gonna get dark. And of course, being a group of six, that's me, Eddie, Peter, Dennis, Pauline, and Frida. Riding a group of 6 at night is very difficult. Like, it's very difficult for you to keep track of each other. You can easily lose each other. And in a foreign country, that's even trickier, right? So we had to kind of, just do another briefing. From there, we left and pushed to, was it Ginger? Maybe, I think so. But when it got dark, we had to stop first, and then so we kind of paired each other, right? So to keep track. So we're like, okay, you need to make sure that wherever you go, you're always with this person, so that at least even if like the group ends up splitting up completely, then you're not go alone. You at least have one other person who you're riding with. So we keep pushing, get to Ginger, and now it's dark. Traffic is crazy. Lots of like boda bodas, motorists are driving like crazy, and then people overtaking on the left sides. For some reason, also the boda guys, like when they're sometimes when overtaking, they kick the kickstand, they put it down so it drags on the road and like sparks fire. I don't know why all the drama was necessary, but really, yeah. So it's a very scary and intimidating roads. Like Uganda has intimidating roads, especially at night. So here we are, still pushing, and then I think at around maybe Ginger, while in traffic, at some point I just felt like some impact from the back of my bike. So I'm like, oh, okay, what's happening? Looking at my mirror, so there's one of the motorists had hit my bike from behind. So my first thought is, okay, I mean, I know I'm not hurt, but I was like, I really, really hope that my bike is okay, and we are not about to experience drama in a foreign country again because my bike is spoiled. So I pulled over, looked at my bike. Luckily, the only point of contact was the top box mounting and the bumper of the car. So now I tried to flag this guy to come out of the road so that we can talk. This guy looks at me, rolls up the window, and speeds off. So I'm like, okay, rather rude, but okay, I guess. So the fact that my bike wasn't spoiled, I was just like, you know what, guys, let's keep pushing. So I got on the bike, we keep going. Man, the distance just kept growing and growing. You know how like at night when you get tired, you've ridden a long distance, still have a long distance to go, you keep looking at the maps and it's like the distance isn't even like it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. So there's an expressway, I think it's still around Ginger. There's an expressway that bikes are not allowed to use. So we knew about it and we were told about it, but we were really not sure how exactly not to access it or where exactly it was. So remember, I'm the one leading, I'm looking at the maps, and I've put like Google Maps, avoid all tolls, avoid all whatever, so I'm like, okay, maybe we're on the right track. So we kept stopping to ask, and then when it got to a point where we thought we were like very close, so we we stopped again and asked. And then at some point, I was like, am I on the expressway? I was like, maybe not. Then I started seeing police ahead of me. I looked at the mirror and everyone else hadn't followed me. So I was literally alone. And then they started calling me and telling me that, you know, you're on the wrong way, you're on the wrong way. So I stopped before I got to the police who were stopping people. So I stopped and then I rode back and joined them. And then now we used the correct route. Now on the old bridge, which is what we were allowed to use, we find cops there and then we had to like, I don't know why the other people did not, but for me, they told me to open my bag. They checked everything. It's at night. I unpacked everything. They checked. I packed back, tied them back, and then we went. So that was yeah, that was maybe around 8 p.m. Remember, we're supposed to get to Kampala, and then past Kampala to Entebbe. So we still had quite a distance to do. So at that point, we're like, guys, let's keep pushing. I remember at that point, Frida and Pauline already kind of mentioned that, you know, they were getting tired and they were not sure about getting to Entebbe. So we're like, okay, let's try push to Kampala. And then, which I think maybe was like about maybe 100 kilometers. But maps said 80. And when Frida asked me, I also told her 80. But I think later on she figured that it wasn't 80. So we left and then kept pushing. So now the roads there were tricky. One, lots of trucks. There were also lots of potholes, and then as we moved out of Ginger, we started going into like sugarcane plantations. So at that point in my helmet, I was just like, at this point, even if you're tired, there's really no turning back. So you just have to keep pushing. So we pushed through the sugarcane plantations and then got to some forested area. So at this point, because it's really dark, and of course, you know, people ride differently at night, right? So I was leading, so I was trying to push people by creating a bigger gap every time. So I create a gap and then other people pull. I create a gap, then they pull. But then the guys, so Eddie was sweeping, and then the guys at the back, the back, you know, the guys at the back, Eddie, Frida. So Eddie was essentially just taking care of Frida and Pauline. And then me, Dennis, and Peter we were essentially moving faster. So it got to a point, you know, I think one of the things I really respect about the people I ride with is they know their limits and they oftentimes communicate their limits, right? So we got to a point, Frida said that she can't go any further. So this is between Ginger and Kampala. So Eddie, who was sweeping and of course not leaving them behind, stopped them. At that point, us who were ahead had gotten to another stop, so we were waiting for them. So they decided that, you know, we'd get a place to stay the night and then they'd join us the following day in Entebbe. So that's Pauline and Frida. Now Eddie, who was with them, pushed through and joined us. So we waited for him and then he joined us. So now at this point, it's Eddie, Peter, Dennis, and myself. Kind of like the so at that point we were tired, but we were really motivated to get to Entebbe. We looked at the maps. The maps, I think, lied to us. That was about 60 kilometers because the distance we rode that night, we spent so much time on the road, it wasn't 60 kilometers. So at that point we're like, you know what, guys, one, let's be very careful, but also at this time we can't afford to ride slowly. So the ride from there to Entebbe was insane. If you look at the speedometer, I don't even think we were moving that fast, but it felt really fast at night. So we were like just doing maybe 80, 100, but it felt really fast at night. So we were riding, and then we got to Kampala at about midnight. And the roads in Kampala are insane. Like at that midnight, it was like market day in like the busiest markets in Nairobi, like Gikomba and all that. Like at midnight, I was like, people don't sleep. Yeah, so many border borders, people are active, and of course, like you have to be really careful on the road. So at that time, we were very conscious that we were very tired, but we also wanted to go fast. So, you know, Dennis's bike was holding on really nicely. He was really, you know, gunning. It was going so fast that night, and that was really good. And then, so the interesting thing is that you get to places where the road suddenly ends, and then it's just like rough road with tarmac and all that. And now Dennis was the only person with an off-road bike. So he went ahead of us, and then he finished the tarmac, got onto the off-road section, And he didn't have time to even signal the rest of us. So remember, all of us are coming really fast. I'm riding a sports tour, Eddie's on a Benelli street naked with, of course, street tires. Peter is on a sports bike. So if you know how. So of course the off-road bike has a longer suspension travel compared to the rest of us. So they just got to those sections. He stood on his bike and then passed. The rest of us, I was following him. I got to that section and I was just like, man, no braking, nothing. I just let go of everything and then my bike just hit the puddles. Then it passed. So yeah, it was a very intense ride. I think at some point past Kampala, on the way to Entebbe, we met some Ugandan biker who was riding a cruiser who joined us, and now he was essentially creating way for us. So he'd go ahead and then separate, like kind of like create way for us, and then we pass. So create way for us, and then pass. Then when he left, now I was the one doing that. So the way we were riding was because my bike opens up fast. So what I'd do is, these are the guys who would come behind me, and then I look, and then when I see a space, I pass fast, and then I go and then I create space for them. Then they come and join me. So that's literally how we were riding the entire way. So we got to Entebbe at about, I think past almost 1 a.m. Yeah, and now looking for the Airbnb we were staying took quite a bit of time, but we finally found it. We were very tired on that day. We got to the house, looked at the house. It was really nice. Everyone's just looking forward to sleeping and resting for the day. So yeah, day 2 also ended up being very eventful, but at least unlike day 1 where we had the bike breaking down and all, we didn't have any bike breaking down. And the only thing is, I think because of the time we'd spent at the border, we had to ride at night, which wasn't very pleasant. But I think the last leg that we did, kind of sprinting to Entebbe, was fun, but also we were very tired at that point. So that was the end of day 2. So remember, at this point it's the 4 of us. So Eddie, me, Peter and Dennis now in Entebbe. Pauline and Frida were left behind before Kampala, and the plan is they were to join us the following day in Entebbe. So that is the end of day 2 in Uganda.